Well, San Diego Comic-Con went online, but did anyone show up? We'll talk about that on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 110 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me on the phone, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hey, Brian.
It's been a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks since we talked last, but some things have happened, at least online, because that's where everything happens in this world now. Of course, we did talk about that we were going to go over San Diego Comic-Con, which was last week. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of the videos because, of course, life is all that stuff that happens while we're making other plans. But I have been keeping up with the news with it and things, if there were any special announcements that were being made, I was going to, certainly we wanted to talk about that today. But one of the biggest issues, I think, with San Diego Comic-Con, with it being online, of course, is it's another attempt, I think, to try to get things back to normal, even though obviously with Comic-Con, if there was anything that was obvious, things aren't back to normal yet. And I think that's certainly, and that's something I wanted to talk to you about today, is that I think in some places people are trying to rush a return to normality when it's
Absolutely.
not, when it's not warranted yet. And I think that's one of the reasons why things have dragged on as long as they have. I mean, if everybody would social distance and wear masks, we could get out from under this, and it's going to take 4 to 8 weeks to do, but we could do that, but people aren't willing to do that. So right. This is beginning to drag on. And I keep hearing, we're looking at, possibly, we might not see anything lifted until toward the end of the year. That's the thing. It's like, if you try to follow the news on all of this, you're going to be completely confused, obviously, because you got all these different people, some of these people in authority or assumed authority that are, they're saying different things. And so there's not really any kind of unified message right now. I know right at this, there was a point where they, here in town, they opened up movie theaters for a little bit and then realized this was a bad idea and closed them again.
Yep.
Of course, that went on all over the place. But, because of that, for the first time, the number one movie in America was The Empire Strikes Back. It wasn't the number one movie when it first came out, but now it is.
Aww.
So it got it got its nod.
Finally.
A lot of movies were re-released in these theaters because, of course, Hollywood isn't ready to drop anything yet. You had Jaws in July because, of course, you got to do that for July 4th.
4th of July, that's when Jaws dropped.
Exactly. So, the numbers weren't great, and people were really worried about coming back, and so it didn't really pan out well. So a lot of these theaters said, "Well, we gave it a shot, but this maybe not be a good idea." And so things have started to kind of shut down again. We're getting into August now. August and then September, and then we get back to winter, and a lot of this stuff really picks up in the winter. So summer didn't really do a whole lot to squelch this. And of course, some people said, summer will wipe this whole thing out. And others were like, I'm not so sure. And well, through the summer, it was hot, but, we still had to deal with this stuff. And so, Of course, then we had, Comic-Con had to go online, and there was obviously, it's not the total Comic-Con experience because you don't have all the crazy crowds and standing in lines and things like that, which could be good to some degree. But one thing definitely that I would say about it that seemed, a lot of people were complaining. Well, I wouldn't say complaining, but a lot of the people involved were a little disappointed with the fact that there didn't seem to be as much buzz online about this year's Comic-Con. But it makes sense to me because what's the point of talking about stuff that you saw there and then you can talk about it because other people didn't get a chance to see it? Well, everybody got a chance to see everything that was going on. In fact, those videos are still online. So there's not a whole lot of buzz. Now, I didn't get a chance to see a lot of the videos, but I don't think you really had a chance to see any of them at this point.
No.
And again, the buzz, I mean, have you even heard any news as far as Comic-Con? I don't think you gone out and sought it out, but...
I mean, nothing looks like, they didn't throw out a big, this was, renewed for a season. I mean, I think the only thing that I was, that I personally, I was excited about Snowpiercer, and then I just, saw on, like, the Instagram, they're like, we've been renewed. So, it wasn't anything, I didn't know, there were no announcements, I don't know, I got to watch the trailers online, so I watched the Bill and Ted trailers, but I don't know if it dropped at Comic-Con or if it just showed up because, everything, it just shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the other thing, too, is that like Marvel and DC, they said, what's the point of doing a Zoom call here? We could do a Zoom call anywhere, and, we could be the focus. And I mean, they've been making those type of decisions when Comic-Con was a live event, but at this point they're saying, well, let's just do our own thing. We can do our own conference call. We can put up our own videos. There's no reason to tie this into Comic-Con. So there was no DC news. There was no real Marvel news outside of what Marvel was releasing on their own. And I did hear that, strangely enough, WandaVision's going to be on time. I thought they were going to push it forward, but I guess they decided, no, we need to keep people interested in Marvels, and the production's already done with WandaVision, so we can go ahead and release it. Now, the thing is, their intention was to release Bucky and the Winter Soldier. They were going to release Falcon and the Winter Soldier first. And production isn't done on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so they can't. So instead of deciding to hold off on WandaVision until they get that finished, they said, well, we'll just have to let WandaVision go first. And there was some concern about, well, what about continuity? Is there anything, is that going to mess up their timeline? And apparently it's not. So I guess they're like two separate.
What we kind of see in WandaVision, I don't know the continuity in the long run because of the nature of the beast, but really would continuity even come into play with kind of the crazy of what it kind of looked like, kind of maybe in someone's head or this episodic look to it, switching back and forth, non-linear storytelling. So it just doesn't seem like it would have been a big deal.
Yeah, that's very possible. And of course, at this point, it's also going to come in front of Black Widow because, that movie won't have been released yet either. So I have a feeling from what I've seen of the trailers for WandaVision, it's in a weird way, it's kind of cut off by itself. And there may be
its own pocket universe, if you will.
Yeah, it may be its own universe in one way or the other. So it may not be as important to keep that within a particular timeline, which is good because after months and months and being able to bring Marvel back to some degree somewhere, is going to be important. The other piece of news I heard in the Marvel universe, of course, was Spider-Man, which there was a lot of question about, well, this new Spider-Man movie, what's going to happen with that? And they are moving the Spider-Man movie. But what's interesting about it is the reason they're moving it is because they want to basically, restart, Marvel movies. And they thought that the best way of doing that was by moving Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man, of course, the second movie was... Yeah, well, the second movie was $1 billion movie, and they thought that if they really promoted Spider-Man 3, that they could turn that into $1 billion movie. And so what they did was, although they pushed it forward, they basically pushed it forward a month. But what they did was they decided they're going to make Spider-Man 3 a Christmas release, which is a huge deal. Such a huge deal is the fact that they decided that they were going to bump the new Avatar movie for it, which was okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Basically, they gave Spider-Man 3 the new Avatar movie spot.
Something that, we've been waiting, 12 years for? How far back is Avatar?
Yeah, it's been a minute. Wow. For sure. But yeah, the fact that's how, first of all, that's how much faith they have in Spider-Man, but it's also how important they think it is. So yeah, they said, Avatar, you got to move. So Yeah, that was a bit of a shock to me. Now, there were some other things, like I said, that have come up. Of course, the Constantine, they had a panel on that, and they brought, Keanu Reeves and other actors from, because I think it's like the 25th. Is it 20th or it may be like the 20th, I can't remember the anniversary of the movie. And
it
so
can't be 20 years. It can't have been 20 years.
I'm hoping
No.
I want to say it's closer to 10 years, but I don't remember. I don't remember.
Well, 20 years would have been 2000, and 2000, maybe the second Matrix was around that time. So I don't know that Constantine was right around there.
Yeah, I have to look it up now since I said that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe 15. Yeah. At the earliest, I would think.
Yeah, I think, let's see, Constantine, 2005. So that would be, it was
15.
15.
Yep.
Oh, geez. So, well,
Not
at
as
least
bad as 20.
Yeah, well, that's better than 20. Yeah, for sure. Let's not age ourselves too awfully much at this point, right? But yeah, so that was cool. And of course, I think apparently the video that got the most views was for the Vikings TV show. And I think the second biggest one was for New Mutants. You want to talk about a movie that is, if there's a cursed movie, that's got to be it. Because it's like they're just constantly trying to get this thing in the theaters, and something keeps happening every time. And it's like it took a plague this time to keep it out of theaters. So, and they haven't said anything yet about what they're going to do. I mean, are they going to try to release it in theaters whenever theaters open up again? So, I mean, there's something weird going on with that movie. It's like you're trying to get this mutant horror movie on, in theaters, and it's like it's one thing or the other. I think at this point, it's like they're going on year 3 of this film, of trying to get this film released. So it's nuts, and we don't know. I mean, at this point, you talked about seeing the Bill and Ted trailer. One thing I'm sure you noticed was there was no release date on that trailer.
Yeah.
Because people don't know yet. We're in a holding pattern. So there's, like I said, there's no telling about when all this stuff's going to happen, and when we're going to, again, because we don't know. We don't honestly know. So we've gotten to this point now where it's just, it's crazy. But you have Comic-Con, everybody's like, get excited about what's coming up. And it's like, yeah, we're excited, but we're excited for a bunch of different reasons. If for no other reason than the fact that when we start to see this stuff again, that means things have gone back to normal. And people, as normal as things are going to get at this point. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to, but I mean, there's a lot, there's a connotation above all of this stuff. Definitely it'd be exciting to go see Bill and Ted, the new Bill and Ted movie. It's going to be exciting to see it, but it's also going to be exciting to be able to go see a movie, period, at this point, in a theater. So, I mean, there's a lot of connotation with this idea of going back to some form of normal. And I mean, a lot of Comic-Con was, looking forward to when those days come. But unfortunately, at this point, we don't know when that is. And there's really no way to know when that is. So it's crazy, but, what can you do with that? But I mean, there's certain things that have been popping up online. Of course, I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan, and we got some news about, season 5 of Rick and Morty. The writer's room they're meeting on Zoom, but they're meeting. And we did get a couple, Adult Swim did their own convention. Again, instead of linking with San Diego Comic-Con, they just put on their own online thing and called it Adult Swim Con. But we did get Rick and Morty stuff, and we did get a very sort of like, in a sense, like the first few minutes of the first episode of season 5, which, it was basically, it wasn't fully animated or anything like that. It was more of, design boards, that they pieced together. So, it's like you get all these kind of sketches, but you get an idea of what, where they're going to be going with the new season. And then there was sort of like it was basically an anime version of Rick and Morty was drawn. It was called Rick and Morty versus the Genocider. And it was basically an anime. I forget who put it together, but, Japanese voices and everything else. But it was basically an Elseworld version of Rick and Morty.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch. And it gave us a little bit of for our Rick and Morty fix. But yeah, again, no announcement of when when we're going to see season 5, because again, everything's up in the air at this point. So when you think about it, it was back in March when this, the middle of March when all this stuff really started to happen. And now, we're heading into August, and we still have really no end in sight for all of this. And it's nuts, it's crazy, But fortunately, we have online. I have the ability to meet up at least online. And I finally got my package in from Kickstarter. I have my new Fiasco game, which I've been looking through. It looks really fun. Most everything now is set up in decks of cards, so that's going to make setups a lot easier. But I do have a Roll20 online, where you can meet up with people. And of course, you're familiar with Roll20 because I think you're using that for D&D, aren't you?
Yes, we are. Mm-hmm.
So I've got it set up on Roll20. I am hoping that sometime in the near future, a bunch of us can get together online and try out the new version of Fiasco. And maybe it won't end in a fire this time.
But those are the most fun.
Yeah. Well,
those are true Coen Brothers movies there.
It must be the most fun because we always seem to wind up there. So it's like, we must be getting toward the end of the story because there's the fire. So
fire,
not fire. That's how we end it. So, but yeah, I'm hoping to, like I said, to get together on that. I mean, obviously in the world that we're living in now, you get your geek moments when you can get them. And, of course, even though there was no big rush to watch the videos, because of course they're online and they're staying online. So you still have that opportunity to watch things. But of course, again, the buzz is not going to be what it normally is for Comic-Con because everything is online. So there's no exclusivity or, having that ability to record a trailer and that nobody else is supposed to see and post it online or talk about what you saw in Hall H that, people who obviously weren't there don't know about. So, of course, the buzz is just not going to be there. But I think, again, the underlying buzz for all of this stuff is, man, when things get back to normal, isn't that going to be cool? But to tell you the truth, I don't think you need a Marvel movie coming out to make being able to go back to some sort of normal cool again. I think we're all waiting for that at this point. And because of the fact that we really don't know when that's going to be. I mean, there's talks about the possibility of some sort of a vaccine in a couple of months, but again, who can say? Right. I mean, all we can do is jump up on our Zoom meetings, watch our videos, and and hope for better days soon. So. And, if for no other reason, get you back in the studio. I mean, I enjoy talking to you, but, it'd be a lot more fun if you're here for sure. Miss having you over, but, we'll keep doing what we do at this point until we can go out again. And hopefully that's going to be really soon. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. And so with that said, we come to the end of episode 110 of the Geek Watch Podcast. Thank you for listening and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch Podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch Podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch Podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch Podcast is a Hanging J production.